Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ninja Selling Podcast. I'm Rob Nelson, and we're here today to remind you to not forget to have fun. I've got Peter Parnegg with me, and Peter, the conversation starts with, somewhere along the way, we started believing that fun was the reward for success. But what if fun is actually the fuel for success? So to start today's podcast off, I want you to tell us what you're going to do for fun in the next few days of your life.
Let me put a punctuation mark on what you just said. We have two choices in this life. We can either work to live or live to work. And often the real estate business, it's like an oil spill. It can coat your life. And pretty soon you're working 24/7, 365. And then it's like, when can I have fun? There's just too much going on. My dad was born in Austria. That makes him Austrian. And there is a natural assumption that if you're Austrian, you're a skier. And he did not learn to ski in Austria. He moved here when he was 18, ended up living in New Mexico, and for some reason fell in love with skiing and learned how to ski at Taos, New Mexico. And so I started skiing when I was 5. All of my great memories with my dad are almost skiing. I've been skiing forever. I don't know how he did it. He was in the real estate business, but every year we built a cabin in Taos. He would take off 2 weeks during Christmas, and we would spend 2 weeks at our cabin. I don't know how he did it, but he somehow figured out the fun component. One of our goals was to go heli skiing, like Larry has done it, going to Canada and doing that. And I've been talking about it forever. I never got to do it with my dad. I've done a couple of heli drops at Silverton. But on Wednesday, 2 days from today, I am going to join my son, who ended up being a pro skier, and we're going to fly to Kelowna, Canada, and then go to Revelstoke and do a heli trip out of Revelstoke on the Tangiers Selkirk. And it's one of those definite life list, got to be able to do it. So we're going to have some fun.
I kind of want to let it breathe for a second because this is an intense thing and it's a life list thing.
Oh, yeah.
How long has this been on your life list? You said forever?
I think 30 years. And one of my very closest friends, my ski buddies, he went on a Canadian trip and I couldn't go. And then he didn't go again, and you always want to go with somebody, and my son wasn't able to. So I've been thinking about this for 30 years.
So 30 years on your life list, or maybe you didn't have a life list, but in your mind.
Yeah.
And what have you done to prepare for this experience? Because I think there's much more to taking something off your life list than just having it happen. You created this experience.
I did, and there is some anxiety around this experience. I can ski anything. I've skied all over the world. So technically, I have no anxiety. But the issue is on a day like a heli day, it's your being physically prepared for it. Because I don't want to be that skier on this fantastic pitch where halfway down my legs are burning up and I go, I got to stop for a second. I have had that experience at Silverton once and it was just stunningly embarrassing. So 4 months ago, my son is a fitness trainer. I said, build me a lower leg program. And I have been doing lower leg workouts 4 times a week for the last almost 17 weeks. So about 70 workouts. And I'm ready.
I love it. What do you think is going to happen the moment that you get in that helicopter and start flying to the top of the hill?
Well, there is a little bit of anxiety about snow conditions. That's something anybody who's a lifelong skier is, how's the snow going to be? But I'm pretty excited about it. And my guess is I will not be skiing with any Olympic racers. And so I've prepared myself to let's not have anxiety. Let's just have joyful anticipation.
Joyful anticipation could be abbreviated with the letters FUN.
Yeah.
Let's have fun. And that's what we're talking about today because so frequently fun is correlated to income. Fun is correlated to success. We see people that have high income per hour and they have all these lifestyle components and it sure looks like they're having fun. But I think the reality of the situation is that it's more correlated to progress or meaning or experience. And sometimes we accidentally think that we'll have fun down the road if we do these things today rather than having fun doing these things. Frame that in a ninja context.
Boy, 3 things came up for me. First of all, bucket list. We've all talked bucket list, not life list. And my take on the bucket list from the movie, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, is he was dying of cancer. And so how many times did I hear somebody say, I've got it on my bucket list? I've always thought at some level the bucket list is a Hail Mary play. Do it before I die, rather than let's build it in. And the word, when you were talking a few minutes ago about fun requires intention. Because if you wait for something to happen accidentally, there is always another listing or another something, and you go, I got to go do that. Whether it's as simple as I bought tickets to the Rolling Stones concert, and all of a sudden I got a call to go on a listing for $1 million, and I went on the listing instead of going to the Rolling Stones. What I have noticed pretty consistently is that I'm going to pick some number. Half of people, if you ask them, what do you like to do for fun? As a Ford question, one of my favorite, half of them go, that's a good question. And we haven't put any contemplative energy into what do I like to do for fun? And if you grew up with parents who basically said, you got to work, you didn't get programmed in ninja context that fun is both, not only you have to give yourself permission for it, but you got to plan for it. And if you've never seen people plan for fun, it almost feels irresponsible. It almost feels like, I don't know, I'm cheating or something.
I think I'm in the most advantaged situation to observe fun and to engage in fun because I have a 3.5-year-old. And it's so interesting. She says to me things like, hey, you want to do something fun? And I was like, yeah. And thinking that let's go get a pink Porsche and fly to San Diego. We'll rent it there and we'll drive it up the coast and stay at every auberge resort that exists.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
And we'll play Pebble Beach.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas she's just like, let's take baby brother, put him on the concrete and trace him with chalk. That would be so fun. That would be so fun. You said we have to plan for fun, but we also have to just allow the fun around us. And there is a fun scale that operates a little bit differently than other things in life. It doesn't have to be perpetually fun, but you can make mundane fun. The financial goal piece of this is we think that we'll have fun when we get there, but oftentimes we get there and just say, okay, now what?
Happiness is not the result of a sale. A sale is the result of happiness. So to your point, and I think it was really insightful, when I had my little kids, my then wife said, just get down to their level because they're going to sit there with 4 Lego blocks for 5 minutes and put them together and take them apart. And they just had a blast. It doesn't have to be the trip to San Diego, which then takes me to the place of, have we lost touch with some of our just innate, spontaneous youth, our inner child that's like, yeah, let's just go for a walk. What if connecting with people on a Ford call and you looked at it as not obligation, but I love hearing about my friends. What are they doing? It's fun because you're going to land if you make a Ford call. What are you doing? Somebody's going to say, I'm about to go on a heli skiing trip.
It's a perfect example of other experiences in your career. You've held the sales position, you've been a manager, you've also led an organization from the top. Where have you found joy in your career that had nothing to do with money?
One of the things I'm trying to figure out is how to slow down time. As we know, the days seem long, but the years are ripping by. And as I am moving into the next chapter in my life, I'm enjoying my life so much right now, I want more of it. And my wife and I are talking about it, and there's this hilarious restaurant downtown in Fort Collins called the Schnitzel Place. It's a bunch of guys from Wisconsin that have gotten their German answer and they make Spitzel. And so we went there the other night, and it was all of $12. And we sat out on the walk, and the weather was amazing, and we watched people learning not to take that for granted. In other words, stop and go, this was terrific. This person had a passion about creating that. The food was great. I was sitting with my lovely wife. We're watching people walk by. We're in downtown Fort Collins in this very vibrant community. What if we got better at leaning into the beauty, to the joy of simple experiences?
Some of this comes down to an industry culture that it's subtly said to us, you'll have fun after you hit X. But what if it's really fun to help people find their first home? Or it's fun to show them the properties that don't work. What if it's fun outside of the closing room?
There are moments in every real estate transaction, the ahas, the this is the one, or oh, yes, we got an offer, or any of those things that if we changed our perspective, you could go, that was fun. So here would be a practice, and now I'm thinking of this for me. Every day when you come home, at the end, think of 3, 4, or 5 things that you might have just gone, oh, whatever, and say, wait a second. That was really fun, tracing Henry's outline on the sidewalk. I'll bet you still have the visual image, right? Saying it, sitting here, if everybody were watching, the smile is genuine, it's real. And so I think that the practice of seeking joy in the microseconds, the great meditation teachers said that life is really basically chop wood, carry water. And then the modern version is like make food, drive the freeways. Can I find even joy in successfully getting to the next place and my air conditioner in my car worked and I'm getting to help somebody and I know that if I can add value, that's fun. And that might be sort of real granular way to habituate ourselves to finding fun, which then will morph into, well, I could do that. Let's go to the concert.
What you say is evolving fun from being the reward to a discipline.
A practice.
To being a practice.
Yeah. This podcast is fun because I've poked around at it, but articulating it makes me go, I'm going to work on this right now. I'm ever having a lot of fun doing this podcast.
There you go. Let's go back to heli-skiing and the fact it was on your life list. At what point in time did it go from being an item on your life list to something that you would schedule? What changed in the world? What was it that led you to saying, this is the year, this is the place, and it came to fruition?
Age, time, urgency. I'm still, I think, really fit, but there is a sense that more rigorous stuff might start to get out of reach as I get older. And so it was like now or never.
What did saying yes to heli-skiing this year make you say no to?
It made me say no to being lazy about exercise. It gave me an incredible urgency to a lot of times for me, exercising is not I have to do it. It's a need to. There are some people that can't not exercise. I'm not one of them. But it's like, no, if I don't start this workout now, you can't cram for exercise, like an exam.
What's funny about this, you don't recall that I had you scheduled to speak at a national conference the same week.
Yes.
It did require you to say no to something on the work side.
Yeah. Well, you were going to try and help me and schedule around it, and then
it was going to be like into Texas, out of Texas, into Kelowna, out of Kelowna. And
thank you.
Finally, I just said, Peter, let's focus on one of these things. And that one was rigid on your schedule, and it should have been.
Yeah.
So how does this relate to ninjas who are planning their year?
There's an old story that I was introduced to in 1992. A person comes into a wise man and says, I need to understand time. And the wise man says, I want you to take this bucket and then I want you to put big rocks in it. And you go out and you put the big rocks in it and you come back and you say, it's full of big rocks. And he says, now I'd like you to go and put sand in it. And all of a sudden you fill it up and there's a lot of room for sand. And then you come back, wow, it's really full. And he goes, now put water in it. And you can put water in it and there's still room for water. The metaphor is that if I started with the water, which is the daily minutia of the real estate business and all the things, there would have been no room for either sand or big rocks. It would have displaced the water. So the order of this is if you're a ninja and you're planning a year, you start with the big rocks and you start with the 1 or 2, 3 things that once booked are non-negotiable because they have times, dates, money, commitment. And then sand, I think the best explanation is that would be a little weekend away. Let's just take off Friday night. Let's drive to Vail, spend a night there. Off season in the summer you can, or in the fall. It's not expensive and it can be spontaneous. Then you can put in everything around it. But if you don't do those 2 things, they just seem not to happen. So as you're getting busier and busier and you're making more money, which gives you opportunities, the problem is if you don't put in the rocks and the sand first, you have more money and no fun.
In your role as a broker owner of a large sales organization, tell me about fun as a leadership decision. You were leading a ninja ecosystem, and there are many leaders who unintentionally create cultures that feel intense instead of joyful because the drive is so clear. They're highly motivated. But how can leaders build a business that funds life instead of consuming it, that creates space for these types of things, and then weaves them into the culture of that organization?
If you've been to a Ninja Leadership, there's this graph that we put up about networking and productive. And ultimately, a perfect organization has fun networking and is highly productive. There is a gravitational pull naturally away from the pair of them because fun, all of a sudden we're hanging out and we're having margarita parties and we're Friday night nachos turn into Thursday night nachos, and then we've got bowling night on Wednesdays and Tuesday nights bunko, and then we have hangovers, and pretty soon we're having too much fun and not productive. And then we overcorrect, we become highly productive, but then we have no fun, sort of the mercenary culture. Point here is that it's awareness that this is, I almost don't want to say this because it sounds like an affirmation. This is a hard business. It's challenging. You have a lot of money. You have people's emotions. You have the uncertainty because it's all commission. And so if a sales falls apart for many people, that's a month's income and it just disappears. So there is a lot of anxiety. So as an owner, we tried to consistently have little events to demonstrate that fun is important. All the way from, we used to have ice cream bar Thursdays. 3 o'clock, we'd go get 50 ice cream bars, and anybody that was in the office, we'd just walk through and hand it out. And then at the end of the month, we'd have a margarita machine, and we'd have a little party. And then one of the ways to do it is to have games. Don't call them contests, because that fuels the sort of competitive thing. But you can do a game that's really fun, and at the end, you can have a party celebrating the activities. So now you've combined productivity and networking. But I think it's the consciousness. Once a month, you have to make some kind of an effort to do something for fun.
So how does fun actually improve productivity?
When you started this question, if you've read or are familiar with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. And the story is, of course, the guy who works 24/7, shearing sheep, I think it is, or cutting wood, is exhausted at the end. And the guy who stops every 3 or 4 hours to take a little rest and sharpen his saw is way more productive because sharper tools, better tools produce more. Here's the key. Our number one tool is our energy and our consciousness. I know that being attentive takes an enormous amount of energy. So if you give yourself breaks, little 15-minute fun breaks during the day, whatever you're doing, give yourself a break. You will be more productive counterintuitively by working less.
If somebody's built a wildly successful real estate business, but they forgot to live along the way, what advice would you have for them?
Figure out where you're holding on to things that you can delegate. The biggest challenge is that we believe that we are valuable to people because of all the little tiny things we do. I finally had to, as an owner, I was a control maniac and I tried to do everything. And what that made me was less reliable because I overcommitted. And when I finally said, I'm not as good as that, Jackie will do that for you, I could see the collective relief in my agents going, thank God he didn't say he'd do it because I never know if he'll get to it. And so figuring out what I finally decided, that what people want in a real estate agent is your brains. They don't want your car. They don't want the fact that you generally, put up the sign. They don't care who puts up the sign. So I would go back and say, where is my brain required? Where is my brain not required? And offload everything that your particular gift doesn't require and create time.
So how do we know if we're succeeding in life?
Oh, individual question, isn't it?
Broad strokes?
One, wow.
Is a sense of harmony in there somewhere?
I would start with sense of joy. How often do you literally experience, and hopefully it's in a day, in an hour, how often you go, I'm joyful right now. I don't have any anxiety. I told you, I think on a prior podcast, my number one goal is to have as little cortisol in my bloodstream as possible. Cortisol is always created by fear and angst. The less fearful I am, the likely I'm more joyful, I'm experiencing more love. So first thing to do is stop and go, how many times was I anxious today? I mean, you could graph that and you'd immediately go, holy moly, not much joy today, and start one at a time. Can I create one joyful minute today where I am not nervous, where I've let go, and even just I went and I got a tall flat white and I put the right amount of sugar in it, and for 1 minute when there was a little heart on my Starbucks, I acknowledged that heart is really nice. That barista made the effort for that. I'm going to sink into the joy of the first step, of the first sip.
I love that. That's what it looks like to measure success by experiences instead of transactions. And I wonder if we could reframe this to say that the goal isn't to have 100 transactions a year or whatever your transaction goal is, but maybe the goal is to have 100 stories worth sharing, moments of joy inside of those transactions that when you think back on that one, those buyers, that listing, a smile comes to your face instead of the thoughts of the ongoing, perpetual, the idiot on the other side of the transaction.
Yes.
And, they barely got to the closing table. And then when they did, I ran out of there because that check wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And if you could set the goal of having stories worth telling, it would not only bring joy to you, but it may attract a completely different kind of client than the one who sees you as just purely top producer.
We get habituated to running. And let's start with something interesting. How many realtors do you think skip lunch every day?
Most of them.
Yes, because I'm so busy. We know that your body does not respond well to not being fueled, which then creates a mood at 2 or 3 or 4. When you are underfueled, it's really hard to muster joy. So what if we started saying, and my joyful moment today is I nurtured my body. I took care of it. I didn't demand more of it and ask it to run at full bore without fuel. That then allowed me, when I showed up my 2 o'clock appointment, I could experience the joy in the conversation about we're ready to move rather than, okay, I got a listing here.
What time are you going to be on the mountain in Revelstoke?
We check in at 7:30 on Thursday morning, go through AVI training, talk about the heli, and we're supposed to watch a video. I think the first flight is at 9.
Peter, it's an amazing accomplishment. This is a significant expense. It is a significant amount of planning and preparation, both for your body and your checkbook and your skis and the gear that you're going to need to take, because they don't have a Scheels store on the top of Revelstoke.
They do not.
And it's an amazing reflection of the relationship you have, that of all the people that you get to choose, you can go with your son. It's going to be a remarkable experience for you. Mm-hmm. And I want you to tell us, what are you feeling leading up to it? Because I think we need to circle back when you're done with this. But life lists have a variety of flavors and intensities attached to them.
So can I jump off on that? Our year of the word 3 years ago in our family was make the effort. That at the moment when you have a decision, should I do this or not, as simple as going to see the Vitamin String Quartet in Denver, it required buying the tickets and driving down and leaving early and driving back late at night, etc. One of the ways we are trying to get better at experiencing joy is when there's that binary moment, should we do it or not? The answer is always yes. My son is a realtor in Salt Lake City. He gets a call from somebody who says, he was on the referral rolling thing. The guy says, hi, I'm looking for a buyer's agent. My brother-in-law is moving to Salt Lake City. I live in Reno. And what's your process for dealing with a buyer? My son said, well, I have a 10-step buyer process. I don't know if you're aware of, but I use a system called Ninja. And the guy says, stop. You get the referral. I have called 6 other agents at this company, and everybody says, oh, don't worry. I'll take care of your customer. Great, give me the name. You're the first person that led with, I have a process. And then he goes, is your last name Parnegg? And he goes, yes. Is your dad Peter? Yes. I have done all the installations for this guy's firm in Reno. It was a $750,000 buyer. He sells him a house. Tomorrow, my son is closing on another referral for the same person, who is a cardiologist moving from Reno to Salt Lake. The closing is $1.6 million because he led with, I have a 10-step buyer process, but here's the punchline. The guy They're now friends. And he said, where are you going heli skiing? And he goes, well, I'm going to Tangier, Selkirk. And he says, I have been on that trip. You will have an incredible time, and there will be at least one other father-son pair.
Incredible. It's going to be truly remarkable. And Ninja, we talk about living the life of your dreams, but we have to ask, are we really doing it? And Peter, this one's 30 years in the making. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Go have the time of your life.
Yeah.
I hope that you don't have to stop halfway down the hill, but the reality is if you do, stop and breathe it in.
Yeah.
And then keep going.
And then laugh. That's exactly right. Don't take ourselves too seriously.
That's right. Peter, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you sharing your story and having a little bit of fun with me today.
Thanks for the fun. Love you, brother.
If you enjoyed this episode, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com to learn more about ninja selling classes and coaching to get you started or further your journey on the ninja path.
Thank you for joining us. Now go have an incredible day.